Hello again.
And again.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Marlin.
AKA Gee. And welcome to another fresh from the theater vlog. We just got back from seeing John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. And we've enjoyed the previous John Wick movies, I believe.
I'd say you could say we were fans of the John Wick movies. I was really surprised at the quality of the first one. The second one didn't let me down, and this one
just upped everything, from the story to the choreography, just the cast. Everything was about on a 10 times bigger scale, and I'd say this was a pretty satisfactory film overall.
I do too. I think you exaggerated a little. It's probably not 10 times as big. It's better though. It's even better. It was a lot of fun.
The scale was a lot bigger than the last one, especially with the action sequences. There were, I don't know how many, but there were a lot more than the previous one, and a lot more elaborate in how they did stuff.
Very, very much so. Now, understand, there's a lot of things going on in this movie that aren't action. But if you don't like an action movie, you won't like any of the John Wick movies. But they did step up the game even better than they did in the past. As far as the action, it's longer, and also they changed up the choreography because of the way they set up the fight scenes. The things they've done in the past are mainly John Wick, well armed, fighting off all kinds of people coming at him, and that choreography that they had then was like groundbreaking for the time. This time, there's one area where that was how the fighting was done, and that was with his co-star
Halle Berry, and it was kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, but there was a great deal of other stuff going on too. It was, if you like John Wick action, this is even better than you've seen before. The fighting in this movie was just incredible. They obviously had to put some good special effects work into a lot of it, especially for the blood and stuff, but it all flowed very well. Everyone
pun intended,
moved perfectly. Yeah, just we get headshots, we get knife punctures, just everything, and it's Wick, and he has a few people, he fights alongside a few people this time, and they go up against pretty much mini armies throughout the film, and it's just non-stop. The adrenaline is at full blast, and for a movie that's over 2 hours, there was not a dull second. Everything felt like it went on just as long as it should, and was pretty satisfactory overall.
Yes, absolutely. It started out with John Wick on the run from the end of the second one, and it didn't stop. He was just continually on the run.
For those who need to know about the plot, it opens with him, on the run, and he's about to become the #1 target in the whole city, maybe even the world.
The $14 million target, yes.
And the John Wick movies are awesome, but heads up, you have to suspend a little bit of disbelief for these movies.
Really?
Just how big is this crime empire?
And that's true, because this movie if you watch, you'll get a little more background and where he came from and all that kind of thing. Also, you get a better look at the scope, the size of the people who have the continental host, safe hotels and all that kind of stuff set up.
Yeah, it's like
apparently worldwide. Yes.
It's like the Continentals are hotels throughout the world. It's like the Holy Ground thing in the Highlander movies.
Yes.
No one's supposed to hurt or attack anybody, and that's why Wick has become a target, because he killed the villain in the last film in the Continental.
Yes, did not obey the safe house orders.
And the scene, right as the excommunication, as they call it, is put into effect, and he's getting the stitch from the doctor, and then he finishes himself, and the guy, even though he's now the target, the guy helps him out a little bit more, and then allows him to like shoot him to get away. And I'm like, John Wick, was he like everybody in the whole city's best friend at one point?
Yes, he had clearly a background of being
The best.
Within what he was, a good guy. I mean, for an assassin, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he is still a ex-assassin, done a lot of dirty shit, but I guess overall, he's an alright guy.
He's a really good bad guy.
Yeah. Do you think John Wick qualifies as an anti-hero at this point in his life?
Ooh. In the fact that he's not a bully, and he doesn't pick on the weak. In that sense, yes. On the other hand, he stays out of things. But it's a cold life that they show us all in these movies.
And the last film did have him go a little international. This one, once again, expands that a little. He goes to, according to the credits, they filmed these scenes in Morocco.
Yeah.
Goes to Casablanca. And that's where he meets Halle Berry's character, who's an old...
Sophia.
Yeah, Sophia, who's an old friend and also a former assassin. She now runs the Moroccan Continental.
Yeah, the Safe Hotel, yes. And John Wick goes to her because he needs her to do him a favor to get in contact with somebody else. And he did her a huge favor a long time ago, and he's calling it in.
And for her character, who's new, we got her backstory.
Yes. Yes.
Still shrouded in a little bit of mystery, but we got just enough to get an understanding of how far their relationship goes back.
And as far as the backdrop on the whole international crime organization and all like that, there's no final answers. It's still mysterious, but it gives you a little bit more.
Gives them more room to reveal more in the next sequel.
Well, yes, 18 years from now, we'll have Keanu Reeves out in a walker kicking ass.
And he's managed to look pretty good after all these years. Like, he's in his early 50s. But I couldn't help but notice age is starting to catch up with him a little.
Oh yeah, they showed him getting up off the ground, a lot of that going on. So they weren't, he's not Superman, and they don't mean to portray him like that.
And that's another thing I like about John Wick in these movies. He's a badass. He causes a lot of damage, but he does get hurt a lot.
Yeah, I bet he had a bloody face for at least half of this movie.
It's like they spent the first film building him up, calling him Baba Yaga, talking about how he could do all that shit, including that cool trick with the pencil.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike, say, just an example, Steven Seagal, the build-up is worth it, and the big showdowns with the villain characters don't feel like a letdown.
No, it's so well choreographed. And that's the trademark of these movies anyway. I mean, there's a lot of good action scenes and a lot of good action movies. But they hit a pretty high mark here, high standard.
The most impressive action sequences for me were the ones where he's going up against the people on the motorcycles. The first one where he takes out like 2 guys on motorcycles while riding a horse, because I guess he's counting on they don't want to hurt the animal.
Yeah, I was kind of worried about that, but whatever. Again, if you can't suspend a little bit of disbelief, then
I know, but it's fun to make a few jokes.
Oh, it's clearly a fun movie.
And the part with him on a motorcycle and the other people, there are ninjas going after him in this movie, which I'm like, oh yeah. And so we get him on a motorcycle fighting ninjas on motorcycles while riding a samurai sword in one hand, trying to get them. Just
through the streets and the bridges of New York.
Yeah. New York, what a town.
I guess.
Some characters from the last two movies, like, it's interesting, like, they brought in new characters, and they didn't bring some back, which I thought was interesting, a good change of things.
Yeah, they brought back Winston.
Yeah, played by Ian McShane, and they brought back his right-hand man, the concierge, I guess, of the Continental. Just let me look up the character's name.
Who had an even bigger role in this one than did in the past. That was interesting.
Yeah, Charon, that's his name.
Yep.
Played by Lance Reddick. It's funny, he started out just as the guy at the front desk, and now he's has a gun and he's taking action.
Yep.
And introduced in the last film, Lawrence Fishburne. He was like the king of
the Bowery.
Or as I like to think of him as the Bum King.
Yeah, you know, a lot of his eyes and ears and his bad guys, they are on the street, you know, like bums in the alleys and in that kind of thing.
They're like lower level criminals of sorts, but they're still all connected to the much bigger empire, which they call the High Table. And we get this character who is called
the adjudicator.
Yeah.
From the High Table. She represents the High Table to come in to clean up what has gone wrong, because John Wick has killed a protected person within the protection of the Continental.
Yeah, and she feels that anyone who helped him is also now marked for death. Which leads to Wick finding one more unexpected ally and a big battle, and also she hires the leader of the ninjas, Zero, played by Mark Dacascos. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And the Zero character, this character is my favorite of the villains in the John Wick franchise.
So far.
This character was just a whole lot of fun. He was badass, threatening, showed no mercy, except for John Wick, because he wanted their battle, I guess, to be, even though he didn't say the word, I guess he wanted to be honorable of sorts. And he says in that one scene, "I'm a big fan," which is just, it felt right. It felt like it fit in. Their big battle was incredibly well done. You can't say enough. The choreography in this movie is outstanding, and it had a lot of emotion behind it. And you actually, even though he's the bad guy, so you get a feeling of what's going to happen to him. You did feel, I guess, a little sympathy for him.
I'm not sure sympathy, but he had enough humor in the way they wrote the script and the way he delivered that script to show that he was sitting there at the end, and I won't say what his condition was, and he's saying to John Wick, "That was a pretty good fight, wasn't it?"
That was oddly sweet.
Yes.
And I just want to say, I saw last month the new Hellboy movie, also featuring Ian McShane, and there was also a scene where a character fanboys over somebody in that film, although it was done a lot better in this movie. And I want to say this. New Hellboy movie, take notes. This is how you use Ian McShane in your film. Like, McShane, he is a great actor. He's done great on a lot of stuff. But in the new Hellboy movie, his character, I don't blame him, but his character was awful. And this movie shows, like, with the right writing, just how fantastic he can be, just how great. Because as Winston, he's, like in the last few films, he's a kind of subdued, neutral character to everything. And like Charon, Winston gets a little more action in this film, and there's a bit of a twist to his character near the end.
It was, overall, you couldn't have done better. And as much as I enjoyed the first two movies, I was kind of thinking about this well in advance. I wonder if this is really going to be, you know, how this is going to be. did not disappoint. Stepped up their game, and the plot was easy to see when it was happening. They gave John Wick in the last encounters some technical things he had to deal with that were the bad guys coming as Jake said about early on, like in armies and equipped. So his character has to adapt on his feet, come up with answers, and pretty good.
One of the main faces that was advertised in the trailers was Angelica Houston, who is I'm not exactly sure. Like I watched it, but I'm still having a little hard time figuring out exactly what the connection into. Like he used to be part of this.
I think it's left undefined on purpose.
It's like this.
But it's apparently people who import young people into the country, and they use them in a couple of different ways. Ballerinas for one.
Yeah.
And because she's obviously they operate a what am I trying to say?
Looks like a school.
An arena and a school for the ballerinas. And she's also has some other young men, and I think they're there for the purposes of nothing good. So
they're fighting, we know that.
yeah.
And yeah, she and John have this connection, and that's where we find out a little bit more of his backstory. And Angelica Houston, she's like I guess you could say royalty in terms of a movie star. She's been around a long time. She's the daughter of John Huston, so she's here. Like, it's cool. Like, this series brings back a lot of good old faces, and they keep killing them off aside from McShane. So it's good to bring new people in, and she did well for her scenes. And do you have any negatives about this film?
Negatives. No. I wish I knew a little more information about this or that, but I think that's a good storyline. The twist at the end, I still don't know the motives for that, and I suppose that when John Wick 4 comes out, that may be revealed.
My my only minor negatives, I guess, were as much as I liked Angelica Houston in this, and Halle Berry, she owned her section of the film. She and Keanu Reeves were awesome together, and she has her own dog, and there's a moment where the dog almost gets killed, and I got the feeling that's where they really become the team. And as much as I love Halle Berry and Angelica Houston in this, I feel like they were kind of in and out. Angelica Houston, she has her final scene near the end of the first act of the film, and I get it, leave it open a little for maybe a sequel, but I feel like one more scene with both of these characters after their parts in the film end wouldn't have hurt, like maybe at the end.
Well, it's hard to say because the storyline is that everybody is not supposed to touch, much less assist John Wick in any way, or they're up for big problems. And so it was kind of like, okay, here it is, gets involved, you're out of here.
I know, just maybe one more scene, maybe just at the end, wouldn't have hurt. Feel like they were there and then they just weren't, and they had such good portions of the film. I felt a little, and the next film better, I hope, bring them back, because I felt a little shortchanged here with them.
Unlike Angelica Houston, Halle Berry's role played for a lot of action. She was involved with the physical action.
I know.
And just, what I thought was a good way to write the script, though, at one point where she gets, all of a sudden she's being manhandled, she's getting, punched around. They didn't send John Wick in to save her. She pulled her own, chestnuts out of the fire. So.
And she kept hitting and hitting until the other guy just couldn't move, and then BAM! But yeah, with her, the way they advertise the film, the way they build her, I thought maybe she'd play a much. I mean, she was in pretty much the whole second act of the film, but I felt like she was going to play a much bigger part based on just how much publicity was put around her role in the film.
Well, she's an Academy Award winner, so you're gonna punch that up a little bit to get people's butts in the seats.
It's a lot better than what they did with her in the X-Men movies.
Which is like
a bit of a waste.
Yeah.
And my last, I guess, flaw with the film, I just thought the character of the adjudicator,
yes.
I thought that character sucked. Just, I never took the character seriously in any of her scenes, and like she looked creepy, but as soon as she started talking, the whole creep thing just went away. There was no intimidation anytime she opened her mouth. Like, this character didn't feel like a big person to be afraid because of her decisions, what she says gets done. Most of the time, she felt just like a bitchy principal, maybe, just talking down to a kid. Like,
I think she was very accustomed, I'm putting myself into the head of the character she's playing. She was very used to, because she represents the high table, everybody bowing and scraping. And they did play a little bit, this is New York, with her a little bit. And I think that after a while she realized she couldn't come in, speak for the high table, and everything would go the way it was supposed to go. So I wasn't put off by the character.
I get what you're saying, but I never took the character seriously. Just didn't seem as intimidating as she should have been.
She didn't browbeat anybody, but she was clear with them. So she wasn't intimidating, and she didn't portray evil, other than the fact that she was very happy to and willing to deliver the bad news to people. Now, she did hand down a couple of physical penalties to a couple of characters, and
I know, but even then, I didn't really. Yeah. It didn't do anything for me. I didn't take anything. I just didn't take anything she said seriously or as a real threat. Even though real threats happen, I feel like there are some actors who can really exude threatness through just speaking, but this wasn't it for me. That's all I really gotta say. This character I thought was lame.
I didn't have the same impression.
So, do you think you've said all you've had to say?
Yeah, pretty much. I other than a recommendation, if you liked John Wick 1 or 2, or if you haven't seen them but you like action movies, this is the one to see. We sat down, and it was non-stop. I was getting tired of him fighting so much. I mean, not tired of him doing it. I was beginning to get exhausted because of all the fighting he's doing on screen.
You could feel it, really. I recommend it too. He doesn't do the rating system, but I give this movie a 9.3 out of 10 in my book. I guess I had a few minor flaws, and I'm hoping they better answer some of the things that happened that were unresolved in the sequel. But I loved it a lot. Definitely, if you haven't seen John Wick 1 and 2, see them first and then see this movie. This whole series, this is the perfect trilogy to star Keanu Reeves, not The Matrix. And funny enough, the perfect trilogy to star Keanu Reeves reunited him with, even though it wasn't the first film, Lawrence Fishburne.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool to see them work together again. Mm-hmm. The director of the John Wick movies, Chad Stahelski. Yeah, I really suck at pronouncing names. I've said that a million times, but for anyone who's new, I suck at it. He was Keanu Reeves' stunt double in The Matrix. So, yeah, it's like a whole Matrix reunion party, except done well.
And it's clear that he knows how to set up action scenes.
And apparently he had never really directed before the John Wick movies. So, good job, Chad, and hopefully you don't disappoint us with number 4. Guy's been very adamant on not revealing spoilers, and I think we did a good enough vlog without spoilers, so this is going to be one of those rare times where I won't jump into them. Just the ending for this movie, without giving anything away, really side-winded me. And there better be some closure in the next movie. Check it out, and if you don't, fucking blow.
Check it out.